Our speaker is named Jeff Davis. He is the CEO of a recruiting company called Mammoth Recruiting. He was one of our featured, was he a featured speaker at Expo, or was he at a table for sure at Expo? All right, but he has been a friend to Launchpad Job Club for a very long time. We got him through the lovely and talented Shannon Mantrum. And this is the first time that I'm going to hear him speak, and I can't wait because it's something that's he's going to talk about a very elusive goal that all of us have, especially when we're looking for a job. How to stay positive. Jeff Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So thank you so much for having me here. Thank you, Kathy and Shannon, for inviting me to speak today. Our topic today is staying positive. This is a topic that is really special and near and dear to my heart. I have been in your shoes. I have been a job seeker. Just a little background on me. I got into the recruiting industry right before the recession. Not the best time to be trying to find other people jobs because there are no jobs. So recruiters actually went through everyone seemed to be getting laid off. All my friends in the industry were being laid off at that time, and it took me 18 months to find my next opportunity. So it is really hard to kind of stay in the right frame of mind when something like that happens. And I certainly went through that and went through a period where it was very, very tough for me to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. So this is one of the reasons why this is a topic that I love talking about with job seekers, because I think it is so important and it's a topic that a lot of other recruiters don't cover. All right, so a little bit about me. I have about a decade of experience in recruiting and human resources. Got into this right out of college, kind of by accident, fell in love with it. I'm a people person, so this is the right type of job for me. I've worked as a recruiter for a lot of large organizations like Aerotech and Manpower and Forever 21, so some experience with staffing firms, some experience with privately owned companies. And I've worked with hundreds of hiring managers, thousands of job seekers, and I've worked in industries including sales and marketing, retail, accounting and finance, IT, and manufacturing. I opened Mammoth Recruiting in 2014. We specialize in what we call professional service skill sets, so that's sales, marketing, accounting, finance, office staff. Although we do some IT because it's Austin, we'd be very foolish to leave IT on the table. And we do occasionally go into other skill sets as well, but the professional services is really kind of our bread and butter. So today we're going to cover a lot of topics here because there is a lot that really has to be discussed when we're talking about staying positive in our job search. So first we're going to talk about what is depression. How is that actually defined? Because I think there's a lot of, it's sort of a taboo subject. We don't like talking about depression. So there's a lot of misconceptions as to what that word actually means. We're going to talk about how this is a hurdle or can be a hurdle in your job search. Why the topic is sometimes ignored and why there's not a lot of data on this topic. And then we're going to talk about tips to staying positive. And I have 14 tips for you. And that's not an exhaustive list. There are, I'm sure, tons more things that I could have put in here, but I'm going to give you my 14 favorites. And it's 14 because I just couldn't whittle it down to 10. So, I've got quite a lot to cover with y'all. And we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions, I would recommend that you write them down, and I'll try to address as many of those as possible at the end of my presentation today. Oh, and I also am going to give you my pledge here that even though we're talking about a topic that is not the most happy topic, we will try to keep it as light and as fun as possible. Just because we're talking about depression, it doesn't mean that this has to be a depressing presentation. So what is depression? I think a lot of times we think that depression is a feeling of sadness. How many of you have heard depression kind of defined in these terms, like someone who's sad is depressed? Most of us have heard those two terms used kind of synonymously before, but that's not how the word is actually defined. Depression is actually defined as feelings of severe despondency and dejection. So think about that for a second. and think about how that applies to a job seeker. I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like all job seekers at some point have that feeling of despondency and dejection. Anyone else feel that way? I think that's an accurate statement. I see a lot of hands going up. Okay.
Most employees probably feel that.
That's true. Most employees feel that way too. Yes, if you look at Office Space, I think really hits that one, hits that home. So feeling depressed can also be a normal reaction to loss, life struggles, or an injured self-esteem. Again, all things that we kind of feel when we lose a job. So if you do feel depressed, and as you're looking for a new employer, that's a completely normal thing to feel. I think it's a normal thing to feel at any point in your life, but especially right now, if you feel that, it's okay. It's a normal response to what you're going through. Now, according to WebMD, common symptoms of clinical depression are a depressed mood during most of the day, particularly in the morning. So if you're kind of hitting the snooze button a lot, that might be a sign of that. Fatigue or loss of energy almost every day. Feelings of worthlessness or guilt. Impaired concentration, indecisiveness. Insomnia is a big one that I think is sometimes ignored here as a symptom. Insomnia or hypersomnia, which is the opposite, where you're sleeping through most of the day. Markedly diminished interest or pleasure in almost any activity. Recurring thoughts of death or suicide. A sense of restlessness or being slowed down. And significant weight loss or weight gain. Sorry, I can't make this slide fun, guys. This is kind of this is like the worst slide of the presentation. But I want you to look at this list here, and I want you to think to yourself, and if you've got a pen and paper, write down, out of the symptoms up here on the screen, how many have you felt, or do you feel right now, or have felt in like the last 2 weeks? Think about that, write it down on your paper, because we are going to come back to this at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to give you a minute, take a look at this, and either get that number in your head of how many symptoms you felt in the last 2 weeks, or write it down on a piece of paper so you don't forget it. So, facts and figures about job seeker depression. This is kind of interesting. There are tons of articles about job seeker depression and how to fight it, but there isn't a lot of data on how this actually affects hiring. Anyone have any guesses as to why that is? Any? Yes?
Recruiters don't care. They just care about picking from the top.
Okay. Anything else? Any other ideas as to why this is? Yes?
Is there an issue of discrimination or?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
You need to repeat it.
Discrimination.
Yes, yeah. The gentleman in the back said that getting data on this could be considered discriminatory, which is definitely a factor. Anything else? Yes.
People aren't going to disclose that.
Yes. And is that what you're going to say? Yeah, those are really the two big ones. Job seekers typically don't tell hiring managers that they're depressed. That's really the biggest part of this is, I may assume that based on behavior that I see in an interview with a job seeker, but they're not going to outwardly tell me, hey, I'm depressed today. And the other thing is, HIPAA kind of prevents data like this from being captured by companies. Really, the only way that data like this can be captured is if a research group or a college were to mine some data from job seekers directly versus going through corporations or companies that are hiring. So we can get information about how many job seekers feel these types of feelings, but we can't really collect data on how it affects the hiring process. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So, however, there are some clues that hiring managers will give us that tell us that hiring managers are seeing this as a problem, or at least seeing symptoms of it. So hiring managers will sometimes say things like, this person looked great on paper, but the person who showed up today was completely different. I have had that happen before as a recruiter. When I was working at Forever 21, we were looking to hire another recruiter into our team. And we found someone that I think worked for, I want to say Vans, so another clothing company. as a recruiter, she looked fantastic on paper. She was in the salary range, so we brought her in for an interview. And again, great on paper, and the girl that walked in had just complete lack of energy, didn't seem like she wanted to be there. Every answer was kind of said in this very dull voice and just kind of monotone, and you could tell that she wasn't excited or engaged with the process, and I felt like something was off there. I could be completely wrong, but that's what her behavior was communicating to me. Was there was something going on there that, this just wasn't the right time for her to be looking for a job, because she needed to work on some stuff with herself before she would really be the job seeker that kind of matched what I was seeing on the resume. So lack of energy is another one that hiring managers will sometimes say. Where's their personality? I've heard that one before. I don't think they work with our culture and the personalities on our team. I think we hear that one a lot. I think some of you may have gotten that feedback from recruiters before, if you've actually gotten feedback and a reason behind a rejection. You may have heard something like this before. This one may not necessarily be related to job seeker depression, but sometimes it is. Sometimes the personality clash may be something related to this. It could be something completely different, though. I don't know what's going on, but they seem like they were having a bad day. Hear that one a lot. And I think that's sometimes a signal that there may be something going on with the job seeker. But again, all of these are things that are from the hiring manager with a snapshot of what they saw in an hour or 2 hours with that candidate. So it's a little hard to determine exactly if this is indicative of job seeker depression or not. Did they want to be here is another one that I've heard before. All right. So even though we don't really have a lot of data from the hiring manager side, we do have some data from job seekers directly. So in 2012, there was a study conducted by the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management, and they collected mental health surveys from almost 200 unemployed individuals, and basically gave them a survey every week over the course of 20 weeks, and just asked them questions about their mood, their emotions, their behavior, things of that nature, as they were going through the job seeking process, and even after. If they landed a job, they still continued on with those surveys for the 20 weeks. So one of the things that the study found was that all of them seemed to have a low point in their emotions right after getting laid off. So most people felt really low, kind of hit whatever would be their rock bottom after getting laid off. Then as they searched, it would tick up a bit, but if they hadn't found a job in 10 to 12 weeks, it would go back down. Anyone feel like that's something that they felt, like that they're looking at this data and they say, yeah, that sounds like what I've gone through? I think it sounds like stuff that I went through when I was job seeking too. You feel really bad, maybe a couple days to a week after getting laid off. Then once you start searching, your emotions start to improve because you feel like you're in the driver's seat. And then if things don't go exactly the way you want them to in the first couple months, then it starts to tick back down. So I do have a lot of tips about staying positive in your job search. A lot of these come from a multitude of sources. Again, there are a lot of articles out there about ways to stay positive in your job search. So I've taken a lot of information from those, and I've taken some of my personal thoughts, feelings, opinions, things that I've done for myself that have worked for me, and put them in here too. So a lot of this is opinion-based, either from me or from other recruiters like me. But I really hope that you look at this information and take from it what you think will work from you, and then apply that. So number one, don't search all day, every day. Now, you've probably heard advice that you should treat your job search like a full-time job. How many have heard that before? Treat your job search like a full-time job. I understand that advice. I totally understand why that's being delivered to job seekers like you. I say treat it like a part-time job. And here's the reason why. Putting in 40 hours a week is kind of unrealistic and unnecessary. At a certain point, after a week or two of job seeking, if you're going on to Indeed and Career Builder and Monster and LinkedIn and all of the job boards in the area and looking for jobs that match you and your skill set and your expertise, at some point you're not going to have 40 hours of stuff to apply to anymore, right? Has anyone hit that wall? Where at some point there just aren't new things popping up yet, and you have to give it a little bit of time to see what new things pop up. That's why I say 40 hours a week is kind of unrealistic and unnecessary. Now, there's certainly more that you can do other than just applying to jobs. You can go to networking events, you could take a class, you could work on your resume and cover letter. But even then, I don't know if there's enough stuff for you to do to fill up 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And that's okay. What I would recommend instead, we'll get to my recommendation later, I guess. I didn't structure this the way I thought I did. Full-time job searching also increases the pressure and stress. I think if you're putting in 40 hours a week into your job search and you're not getting interviews, you're not getting hired, eventually I think that's going to contribute more to job seeker depression if you're experiencing that. Because you're putting in so much work, and immediately you're going to think, well, if I'm putting in this much work, why am I not getting results? So I do think that doing this as a full-time job can increase that pressure and stress and can actually contribute to your negative emotions. You also need time to work on things that may help you in your search, even if they're not directly related to finding a job, like looking at your resume, your cover letter, looking at your wardrobe for interviews, looking at other things that may help. And there's also other things that you could maybe focus on that you haven't had time to focus on while you were working. You know, home improvement projects, other things that are important to you in your life. The average job seeker looks for work about 14 to 17 hours per week. So be average. I actually think 14 to 17 hours a week is a great number. I think, that's roughly 3 to 4 hours a day. That's not a bad number. That's half of your day. That gives you half of your day to work on other things that are important to you, or to just relax and not worry about your job search. Number 2, even if you don't search every day, keep a routine and keep a schedule. So, 20 hours a week, you could maybe do 8 hours, 2 days a week, 4 hours one day, and then have 2 days where you're not doing any job seeking at all. That's fine. But whatever you find out is right for you, try to keep a routine and keep a schedule. That'll make it a lot easier for you when you re-enter the workforce, because you're used to that schedule and that routine. Even if your routine shifts because you're now in a different environment and working again, you at least are used to some sort of routine. I'd also recommend that you do some searching every day. Again, if you do every other day, that's not really the worst thing in the world, but I'd recommend doing at least something every day, but only for part of the day. And I ask that you kind of think about, when do you do your best work? Do you do most of your best work in the morning or in the afternoon? Whatever it is, that's when you should be doing your job seeking. Do your job seeking when your brain's at its best. And don't search late at night or on the weekends, especially if you're having problems with insomnia. I mean, think about this for a second. If you are having problems with insomnia and you engage in probably the one activity that is giving you the most stress at this point in your life, right before you go to bed, you're not going to fall asleep. There's just no way. You're going to keep thinking about job seeking as you're trying to fall asleep, and you're going to have even more sleep problems. So at some point in the late afternoon, early evening, turn it off, move away from your computer, don't do any more job seeking activities for the rest of the day. Give your mind time to decompress. And I also encourage you to include other items in your daily and weekly routine, like time with friends, time with family, me time, whatever other things you want to put in your routine that make you happy and provide some value to your life. Make sure that's part of your routine as well. Number 3, keep a job-seeking journal. I have one that I've used before. I will be happy to share that with Launchpad, and hopefully they can push that out to you. But it's really important that you keep a job search journal or tracker. And you want to document the following items: where you applied, when you applied, what job did you apply to, which version of your resume or cover letter did you send, and the contact information of the recruiter or hiring manager if you have that, the current status of your application, and next steps. I would really recommend that you do this in Excel if you're familiar with Excel, because that way, what I used to do is that next steps tab, I would itemize by that, and if anything was in, for me to, the next step was, Jeff, follow up with this company, see if there's a change in the application status, and that next step was set for today, I know, I can just itemize that and go through my list. So I really, really recommend you do this in Excel if you are familiar with Excel. And you can also use this guide not only to check in on your application, but if you ever feel like you haven't been productive, look at this and see how many jobs you've applied to. Because there was one time where I felt like, man, I'm not getting anywhere. Maybe I'm not doing enough. And I looked at how many jobs I had applied to. I had applied to over 100 at that point. So it made me think, okay, well, I'm doing what I need to, but something else is off. Maybe it's the right resume, maybe it's my cover letter, maybe I need to change up those types of things. Number 4, surround yourself with positive people. Know who your allies are and your friends and family. And I know all of our friends and family want us to succeed, want us to be happy, want us to find a job, but not all of them say the most supportive things. I'm hearing a lot of laughter. I'm assuming maybe some of you have family members that really get on your nerves. I am with you. I have them too. Love them to death. Glad I moved far away from them. All right, so everyone in your inner circle cares, but I really want you to listen to what people are saying. So if people are saying things like, the job market just sucks right now, let's grab a drink and forget about it, or how are you going to find a job when there's someone out there who's smarter and younger than you? Try to avoid those people. I know for some of you that may be tough, especially if that person is your spouse or your parents or your kids. If it's one of those people, see if you can have a conversation about how they're showing their support to you, and address this if you feel comfortable addressing it. Because those people you can't avoid, but what they're saying probably isn't the best thing for you. But spend more time with people that say things like, I believe in you, keep it up, what can I do to help, and just how are you feeling? Those people that just kind of are there for you and aren't saying things that are judgmental or giving you excuses or things like, those are the people that you really want to spend time with during this time of your life. More often than try not to take things personally is another big one, and I'm sure this has been talked about a lot in this group and in your families and your friends. More often than not, the reason why you don't get the job has nothing to do with you. I'm serious about that when I say that. Most of the time, it really is completely out of your control. And a lot of times, you're never going to actually know why you didn't get the job. So, choose to believe that you didn't get the job because they couldn't afford someone like you. Okay? They had an internal candidate. Sometimes that happens. I think it's really silly, but a lot of companies have a hiring rule that they have to let external candidates apply, even if they have an internal candidate that they've been grooming for the position. They still have to let external candidates apply. The scope of the job has shifted or changed. That happens a lot during the interview process, especially with smaller and mid-sized companies. I see that happening a lot more, where they think they know what they want or need, and then they start getting people in the door, and they realize, oh, this is really 2 different jobs or 3 different jobs. and they will completely rewrite the job description, and that may knock you out of the running. So, and again, that has nothing to do with you. It has to do with what they need at that time, or think they need at that time. Or there was a restructuring of the division or department, and that can happen, where the person that was the hiring manager is no longer the hiring manager, and the new person has a completely different vision for that department. That can happen pretty frequently. Number 6. Remind yourself of your value. And when I say this, I always kind of think of Saturday Night Live, the whole Stuart Smalley thing. Does everyone remember Stuart Smalley? The you're good enough, you're bright enough, and gosh darn it, people like it. People like me. That thing. Make that your mantra. I know it's silly, but it really does kind of help if you think of yourself in that way. If you've worked at least one day in your life, you must have some skill or skills that are hireable, right? So remind yourself of that. You've got some value. You've got stuff to bring to the table. Stop the self-loathing. I know this is much easier said than done. I'm definitely the kind of person, I'm a perfectionist. So I have to really be cognizant of this particular piece of what I'm telling you, and try not to do any self-loathing myself, because if ever I get something wrong, I really take it personally, and it's a hard habit to break. It really is. But remind yourself again that you're hireable, you're valuable, and also start defining your value in other ways than just what you do. Are you a good husband, wife, mother, father, friend, son, daughter? Those are things that are incredibly valuable. I'd argue even more valuable than what you do career-wise, but we don't place the same value on that as we do on our career a lot of times. So start defining your value in other ways. If you want hiring managers to believe you deserve the job, you've got to believe that you deserve it first. This is why this particular piece is so important. If you do not see the value in you, no one else is going to see it either. So really, really be cognizant of this. I know this is a tough one, but it is really, really important to start to think of yourself in a more positive and a different way. Number 7, practice interviewing. I'm sure this has been discussed quite a bit in this group, but there are ways to practice interviewing. And the reason why is because recruiters and hiring managers are not the most original people when it comes to asking questions. We will ask the same questions over and over again. And I just want to hear, what are some of the questions that you've heard multiple times on interviews? Anyone have any that you want to share? Yes?
Tell me about a time you failed and what did you do?
Yes, that is a good old standby. Yes? I hate that question. I hate that, that's so open. What if you're the kind of person that's like working on a memoir? It's like, what do? Give them the book and here, this is my life story. It's such a weird question. Anyone else?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I saw your hand go up, sir. Strengths and weaknesses, that's a big one. Yes?
Tree or animal?
Yeah, that one's a weird one. I've only gotten that one like once or twice. It's bizarre. Quite honestly, I think in my experience, there was only one question I ever got on an interview that was really unique that no one else had really asked. And it was a very bizarre one. I was given a piece of paper, and I was told to draw a river across the paper, and then the question was, tell me how you would get across the river. I'm like, build a bridge? I don't know. Like, swim? It was just a weird question. So that one sticks in my brain. But that's honestly, out of all the interviews that I've been on as a job seeker, that is the only question that I've ever had that seemed really out there and something completely, something that I couldn't anticipate. Every other question I think you can kind of anticipate. So, find some standard interview questions. Search the internet, go to your library. I would really recommend that you look for articles or books written for hiring managers or recruiters. I have one that's on my desk that I love called Beginning Recruiting or something like that. But it's got I think the last half of the book is all interview questions geared towards different skill sets. So that there are books out there giving hiring managers interview questions and explaining why they're good interview questions. That's a really, really good place to look. Don't just look at articles written for job seekers. Look at some of the ones that are written for hiring managers. And keep in mind that a successful interview isn't just about being able to answer the questions, it's about how you answer the questions. So really listen to the way you answer interview questions. Phrases like I think or I maybe aren't as strong as I would do this. So think about little things like that in the way you answer questions, and practice how you would answer questions that you anticipate being asked. You can set up a mock interview with a friend, a recruiter, even a spouse or partner. Kind of walk through what you think they're going to ask and how you want to respond to those questions that you can anticipate. Has anyone done stuff like this before? Practice interviews? Okay, one. I see a couple of hands going up. That's really good. Do you feel like it was a valuable use of your time? Those of you that do it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, good. And if you are a shy or timid person, I also recommend that you get involved with different organizations that can help you be more comfortable with interacting with others. Toastmasters, I know, was already discussed here today. They are phenomenal. I really, really recommend that you get involved with Toastmasters, at least for while you're job seeking, if you haven't done so already. And improv acting classes are actually a really cool thing to do too, because that'll keep you on your feet, keep you on your toes, and it's also kind of fun. Number 8, get out of the house. Anyone struggle with this when they're job seeking? I know I did. A lot of you do. Okay. You can only sit in front of your computer and look at jobs and send out your resume for so long before you get cabin fever. I actually still experience this because I work from home. I have to remind myself to get out of the house for at least 15 minutes to half an hour, even if it's just to like go to the P.O. box and check the mail. Just getting out of the house for at some point during my day really helps, or I will get cabin fever because I am the only person in my house for my entire workday. This is also a big problem for those of us that work in a bustling office environment with a ton of people. Going from that to being home and isolated is really kind of jarring for a lot of us. Has anyone experienced that? Yeah? A few people? Okay. So this is another one that I really like. Reward yourself for your hard work by going out for a walk, grabbing ice cream. That's a really fun thing to do at this time of year because it is getting hot. Amy's ice cream starts to recognize my face at this point of the year. Consider making your local coffee shop job seeking headquarters. I know a lot of us probably do this or have heard of people that have done this. This might be a good thing for you to consider doing. And just getting outside, being around other people, and being in the sunlight can have a dramatic effect on your outlook. And this kind of ties into my next point, which is number 9. Beware the Ides of May through September. Has any of us heard of seasonal affective disorder? Yes, people that live in Seattle get it. It's really mostly associated with people that live in colder climates, and it's kind of a winter disease where basically in the winter months when you're not going outside as much, a lot of people get what is sometimes called the winter blues or seasonal affective disorder, which is depression really based on the fact that you're not outside and in the sunlight. No vitamin D, yeah. People in Austin suffer this during the summer months though, because it's too hot to leave the house. So, and think about it, you probably go out less during the summer than you do in the fall or spring or winter in this town. So we're going into those summer months right now. Really be aware of this and try to get out of the house during the summer, even if it's only for a few minutes, even if it's only to go grocery shopping. Get out of the house at some point every day, and you can kind of strategize doing that earlier in the day or later in the day when it's cooler. Going out in the heat of the day, I know that's really uncomfortable in this town during the summer when it's 100 degrees out. Skip that part, but go when it's 80 in the morning or in the or in the late afternoon? Okay. Number 10, network and socialize. This is one that I'm sure we've heard over and over again. But find a couple of networking groups that you enjoy and that are valuable to you. So really consider the value of the group. Does it cater to you and the kind of people that you want to meet? Does it cater to the skill set that you have, the industry that you want to work in? Or is it more of a drinking club? I'm from LA originally. And I will tell you, most of the networking groups that I came across in LA, they were glorified drinking clubs. And I don't know, maybe it's a thing that like LA people need that because of the traffic and just the stress of living in that city. I think it is kind of a cultural thing. But and I met some great people through those groups that are still friends of mine, but they weren't productive in the way that I wanted them to be productive. I think the networking groups here in Austin, from what I've seen, are much more proactive and productive and goal-oriented and not just about the socialization. Not that the socialization piece isn't important, it is, but think about the value of your time. There are other things that you should be doing with your time more than socializing. So don't be afraid to stop attending if you can't find or see the value in the group. I would recommend that you go to a networking group at least once every 2 weeks. I know Launchpad meets weekly, so if you come to several Launchpad meetings a month, you're good. But I would probably go to find another networking group as well. And you're always going to meet different people at different groups. And don't forget to socialize as well, especially with friends, family, people that are close to you. Take advantage of this time to spend a bit more time with your family and friends. Number 11, make a positive playlist. This is one that I have not seen any other recruiters talk about, but I think it's actually really important. Music really, really affects your mood. And I know when I was in high school, I went through this phase where like all I listened to was heavy metal stuff. And then I wondered why everyone thought I was a jerk and why I was so angry all the time. And I switched up what I was listening to in my car and at home, and that like my mood really changed. And it wasn't like I was doing anything to change it. It's just like subliminally, music has an effect on your mood and on your emotions. So ditch the super angry music if you listen to any of that. Ditch the depressing stuff. There's I don't know if any of you guys have Sirius XM, but there's a station on Sirius XM called Velvet. They play beautiful music, but it is super depressing. So don't listen to that one. Okay? Go for happier music. Think of stuff that is a bit happier and positive. Add that to your phone or your iPod and listen to that more frequently. I would also suggest that you play tunes that pump you up before interviews. For me, a lot of that, Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody was kind of like my go-to on my way to interviews. It just, I don't know, something about that song just makes me happy. And if you're finding it hard to focus, classical music, there have been tons of studies that show that listening to classical music can help you with your focus. So be aware of that. Number 12, set small, achievable goals. Again, I'm sure we've heard this one over and over, but it's worth repeating. Set daily goals and to-dos related to your search, like I'm going to apply to 10 jobs today. I'm going to RSVP to 2 networking events today. I'm going to contact 3 staffing firms today. I'm going to review and revise my resume and cover letter today. Those are really good, small, achievable goals that you can set on a daily or weekly basis. And I would also say that you should set some goals relating to things outside your job search. Like, I'm going to organize my garage today. I've been here for 5 years and there are still unpacked boxes in my garage and in the apartment, so that's one that I need to do. Or I'm going to find a new book to read today. Things like that that are not related to your job search are I think, just as important. And if you're having a day where, for whatever reason, you can't spend the amount of time that you would typically spend on your job search, like let's say you have a family emergency or you're traveling, you've got other plans, there are you've got doctor's appointments, whatever, and you can't dedicate the standard amount of time that you would to your job search, at least do one job search related activity every day, Monday through Friday. Because I think if you do that, you're still going to feel productive. You're not going to feel like it was a completely wasted day. And wasting time, I think, really can discourage us and get us back into that negative headspace. So being able to do at least one thing related to your job search, even if you can't dedicate a full 3-4 hours to it, is a really positive thing to do. Number 13, get some retail therapy. This one, I'm sure there are some of us that like this idea, some of us who hate shopping probably don't like this idea, but according to studies conducted by Cornell University, as well as some research in polling companies like Harris and Gallup, the act of shopping makes you temporarily happier. What's fascinating about this to me is it's not about purchasing items, it's the act of shopping. So, it's the window shopping, you still get the same effects, okay? So you can go shopping, not spend a dime, not part with any of your hard-earned cash, and you will still get the same effects. Yes?
I have a good friend who detests shopping.
Uh-huh.
However, he's a big cook. So guess what makes him happy?
Grocery store, right?
Well, grocery store's good. Williams-Sonoma.
Oh, okay.
We
That
go
makes
shopping
sense.
at Williams-Sonoma.
Yeah.
So all of us like to shop at least
For something. Yeah. Oh,
The
that's
bike shop or the...
a good point. I like that. Yes, I see your hand.
I know it's not getting out, but sometimes I'll do it online and I'll fill the cart and then not buy anything.
Yes. No, like, yeah. I actually kind of do the same thing. Amazon. I log into Amazon several times a week. I may not buy anything, but I will at least look at what's out there and if there are new things that are being recommended to me and stuff like that. So so you can do this from home. You can do this online. You can go out and get some retail therapy, but don't feel like you have to buy things. I mean, of course, if there is something that you really want, go get it if you've got the money to do so. But really think about this. I think this is really kind of an interesting trick to try if you haven't tried it recently. And if you can consider spending a few bucks on a new outfit that you can use for your future job or for interviews, that can really make you feel good about yourself too. So that's another thing that you can do to get in a more positive headspace. And then the last one, and this is definitely important, serious problems deserve serious help. So remember the earlier slide of all the symptoms related to depression? Kind of want to, we're going to go on the honor system right now. How many of us felt only one of those symptoms? 2? 3? 4? 5 or more? Okay, about half the room has felt 5 or more. According to a lot of doctors and medical professionals, if you are experiencing 5 or more of those symptoms, you may be clinically depressed. And you may need some assistance from a mental health professional, whether that be a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or both. So I would really, really encourage you, as someone who has been diagnosed as clinically depressed, get the help that you need if you really do need it. There are amazing things out here. There shouldn't be any shame in this. A lot of us feel this at some point in our lives. So please, if this is something that is really hindering you, and it is something that can be helped by medical professionals, get that help. And I understand a lot of us, I'll get to your hand in a second. I understand that a lot of us, when we're job seeking, we don't have insurance. So doing this is much more expensive than it normally would be. But consider it an investment in your job search. Consider it something that is going to help you get your job and get back on your feet, because it really, really can make a big difference. So take care of yourself. Consider seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist if you need to. And again, it is okay to be depressed. What you are feeling is important, and it's something that you should be cognizant of and should be aware of. But it doesn't define who you are. Don't let it define who you are. Okay? And that's it. Yes?
I was going to say, for some people that are leaving and haven't done their COBRA election and everything yet. I know when I left my company, the employee assistance plan was part of the option
Yes.
on COBRA, and it's like less than $2 a month.
Yes. Yeah.
And that
So
gives you like 8 visits.
yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't know.
Could you repeat that so Kevin?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the point was that some of you, if you are still able to make those COBRA decisions with your previous employer, and your employer had a employee assistance plan which allowed you a certain number of visits with a psychologist, a lot of times that is included as an option in COBRA. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but in your case, you could sign up for that and not sign up for the traditional insurance,
No, I signed up for the insurance too, but that was just.
like an added option for a couple bucks.
For a couple bucks a month, and it gives you 8 visits.
Okay, so in her case, a couple dollars a month then, or up to 8 visits that she needed. So, you might want to look over your COBRA information and see if that is something that is a part of the option there. Any other questions? Yes.
Your point about the wardrobe is
Yes.
excellent. May I suggest also, take some time, take a good look, and you might want to have a tailor take a good look.
Yes.
Because looking sharp, I mean, tall guys like me, for example, we have problems getting the right fit. But getting the clothes fit properly just
Yeah.
may take that edge off and doesn't make you look 60 or 70.
I agree. Talking with a tailor or a stylist or someone who just really has a good sense of style can really help. This is actually not a bad time to maybe rethink what you do, wear to the office or wear to an interview. I found for a long time when I first entered the workforce, I dressed in really kind of muted colors, and then I realized I've got this kind of flashy personality, and my clothes don't match. So I started wearing stuff like this, because seriously, everything in my closet for a long time, about 50% of my shirts were solid blue. The solid blue shirts like you would see, a banker at Chase wearing, because that's like their go-to. And I switched it up, and I'm really glad I did, because it does change the way people perceive you. Yes.
Just a comment about how I break up my day when I'm doing my job search. When I get to a sag point, I take the dog for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And that, or the other thing I do is take a nap. Like a 15-minute power nap will re-energize
Yes,
me.
naps are wonderful things. And I love the point about taking your dog for a walk. If you're getting into a negative headspace, getting out of the house, getting away from your desk, clearing your head in some way, whether it's going to grab lunch, grab a cup of coffee, walk the dog, do something that's not related to your dog search, and then come back to it, is a really, really good idea. Yes.
You had mentioned getting out of the house a little bit during the day, but they've done studies with children about being in nature, and they've even described nature deficit as a thing that makes people just more wound up and more angry, and for adults it's true too. If you go, Austin has so many opportunities, so many nice outdoor spaces. Going to Bull Creek or somewhere and just spending half an hour out in nature can really impact.
Yes, being out in nature can really impact your mood in a positive way. And there are a lot of places in Austin where you can do that for free. Actually, my fiance and I, we haven't done this in a long time, but we had a list of that we kind of cultivated of all of the free things to do in Austin that we haven't done yet. We've been here for 5 years, and there's still a ton of stuff that we haven't done. We haven't, and we tried to do at least one of those every weekend. We haven't in a long, long time, but I want to get back to that, because it's fun, and it does improve your mood, and it really can have a positive impact. Yes?
I find that volunteering is great when I have extra time.
Yes.
Because it feels good to do something for someone, but it's really nice to have someone say thank you. And
Yes.
having any thank yous for much.
Yeah, volunteering or engaging in some type of outside other activity or hobby, very, very good thing to do, because it does kind of improve your self-worth and value. And it also gets your head away from the job search for a small portion of time. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
You were talking about being able to afford mental health treatment. Travis County has the MAP card program. It's
Yes.
free health insurance, which covers some.
Yes, I know Travis County and Williamson County are great about having some programs to provide medical assistance to people that do not have insurance or can't afford insurance. So like I know of Lone Star Circle of Care. I have some friends and family members that have used them before, kind of really benefited from that. But yes, I know there are some other programs as well. So if that is something that you need to do, that kind of resonates with you, the idea that you may need to talk to a mental health professional on some things, and you don't have the funds or the insurance to cover that, do some research, because there probably are some programs that are available to you that can make that more affordable or possibly even free of charge to you.
The state of Texas also has the vocational rehab services.
Yes, yeah, vocational rehab services are another great resource.